Hi everyone. This Sarahdime video is called You Are Not an Animal, and this is partly to do with something someone requested to me months ago and partly to do with a lot of my own thoughts over, honestly, the last few years, but definitely the last month or so. And it covers kind of a lot. This is actually, I guess, if I were to pick one thing, it's about the origin of life, but it's kind of hard to talk about something that big in a video that someone will watch all the way through, so bear with me as I cover what I can and I touch on some important things. I just want to start off by saying our human kindness is an exceptional part of God's creation. God's creation is the earth, the universe, and every living thing in the earth. Everything was designed for us to be in relationship with God through people, and so we can learn, eat, drink, rest, work, and do everything it is we do while we pass through earth as nomads from heaven. This video, like I said, can't in your precious time explain something like the origin of life in a short enough video. I hope that you watch it all the way through, though, because I'm going to try to make it concise, and it's going to just touch on things. I can't, in my limitations, be perfectly unbiased or logical. In fact, most of it may be illogical. If everything I said were understandable by man, we would be fools to follow God, and we would be all in agreement about every topic of importance. And we all know that the whole world will never agree on everything, nor are any of us the Creator Himself. But bear with me as I touch on some important things to consider, because my Sarahdime videos hopefully make you think. Even if you aren't persuaded my way, God gave us all a free will, so I'd like you to utilize your free will when you think about things that I bring up. I'd like you to think about animals, maybe dogs and cats, because they're probably the most popular pets. I would say that dogs and cats both at some point or another will cuddle or ignore you, they'll kiss or bite you, both will probably scratch you, but it isn't a moral choice on their part with whichever thing they do. They breed by instinct, they act as a way of survival. I really don't think they're thinking, am I being a righteous animal? That's not what God made animals for. That's actually kind of a bigger topic than you might realize, because of not just diets and allergies that people have, but who chooses to eat meat and not, and other things. And those are actually very big topics. And believe it or not, there are things in the Bible that support that topic. So it's probably a topic for a different video. If you have questions about what I'm talking about, you can ask me specifically what food and animals and things have to do with whatever I'm talking about. If you have specific questions, you feel free to ask me what I'm talking about, but that's too big to mush into this already big topic. But I bring up the animals because it's humans that were given a free will to choose between right and wrong. Like when many of us choose to have sex before marriage, some of us choose that it's okay, and maybe even an uncontrollable desire, but you aren't an animal. We have a choice, and they have consequences, good and bad ones. Animals aren't given everlasting life. I'm sorry, there aren't any heavens for dogs, but we are given that chance, not just based on our choices, but on God's choice to die for us. And that segues into the why be good if it has nothing to do with what we do. Well, I know that I choose to be as much like Jesus, who is the epitome of goodness, because I want to do good for people. I feel better about myself. I feel like I'm able to part with possessions easier. I'm more generous to people who are in need. God asks me, commands us to do it, to be sacrificial. I just think it's the best life to live, and the more I follow God, the more I want to be like Him. It's not to earn anything, it's just to be as close to Him as possible. That's the simplest answer. Months ago, my friend Brian asked me to kind of do a video on sex before marriage specifically, but I'm just going to mention it in this video. Maybe I'll delve into it more. And if you have specific questions, you can also message me or comment or something on Facebook maybe. But I just want to point out a couple things. If you've chosen to have sex before marriage, I don't care if you believe in God or not. If you've made that choice, it's already made. You can't reverse the action, but you can always say, if this is important to me, if I'm not married yet, or even if you are, it's kind of late now because you're already married, but I'm talking to you if you are not married yet and you've already had sex, whether it's with the partner you're with or not, say right now, I'm going to start now and keep myself until my marriage night, because the thing is you can't reverse the action, but you can reverse your heart. You can let that part of you prepare for what it was supposed to be. It's not going to be what it could have been, but it's certainly not going to be constantly cheating you out of what that first night is supposed to be. Again, this is another big topic, which is why when you talk about the origin of life, so many things open up and it's too much to address in one video. But if you have specific questions or concerns, or you are struggling with something, I'm not this old wise woman, but I have very strong convictions about what God says about these things. And if you want to know what He says, I'll help you find those answers. I will say a couple things though. If you do have sex before marriage, unless you're already married to that person you had sex with, you can't guarantee that that's who your spouse is going to be, and you're taking away from what your future spouse would have with you. And it's not to, I don't want you to feel guilty. My husband was not a virgin when we married. I've brought it up in a couple things, and I've talked about it with him before, so he, I'm sure, is okay with me bringing it up. And if you're close with him, you know that already. But he decided, I'm not going to have sex with Sarah or with any woman until we're married. And it was at least a couple years of that for him. And that probably was torturous, having experienced that before with other people. And I had to kind of, I guess, forgive him for that, and to kind of get over it myself, because I was hoping we both would be new to each other. And that wasn't the case. But he was new to me, and I was new for him, because he made that choice anyway, even though he had already broken that rule. And that's a big topic. So if you have questions, feel free to message me about it. You can always start over. You can always say, I'll wait until we're married. Even if it's a week before, it still counts. So hang on. I have friends who surrounded me and made sure they weren't, they didn't stalk me while I slept at night, but they would encourage me not to be alone with the person I so wanted to have sex with. They would ask me and keep me accountable. So make sure you surround yourself with people who will do that for you if you are taking it seriously. You don't need to experience or test drive it before marriage. It's part of the fun of the wedding night. Trust me. And I'm going to post a blog in the description that talks a little bit more about this topic. So take a look at it. God created us in His image, but also with a free will. So why did He give us the ability to choose sin? I think God, like anyone who loves us, would rather we choose to love than be forced without a will. If we're honest, sin can be pleasurable, which is why many deny God and continue to sin. You may ask why, when we accept Christ, we will still stumble and sin. Why do we still sin once we've said yes to God? Well, we aren't perfect once we choose to follow God, but we start to hate sin more. Like God does, we want to sin less. And we're not focused on what we're doing wrong all the time. We're focusing more on what we should be doing now. And when we sin after following God, we start to hate it even more, and we start to do it less. And there's never an absolute. We'd be God Himself if that were true. And we will fall when we're tired, or actually, what's the acronym? It's HALT. When you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, that's usually when we stumble into sin. But know this, we can't earn His grace ever. So even if we fall, it's not like, oh, lost my salvation, oh, I'm going to hell. That's not necessarily true. Even if you sinned and you got hit by a bus 10 minutes later, I don't think you'll be given a free ticket to hell. I don't think that's how it works. God considers your whole life. He's not linear. He's able to examine you in an instant. And the thing is we try to be like God because it gives us joy, and it's the only natural thing. When we spend time with the Lord in prayer and in His Word, we tend to be alike to those we spend a lot of time with. So I would choose to spend time with God if you want to be like Him. You don't need to do good works to be saved. We do it because we're saved. I'd rather live like Christ and find out there isn't a God than that my life has no divine purpose and I die in the ground and that's it, than to live unlike Christ, assuming there is no God, only to find out there is, and I'm going to hell now. Is that worth the risk? If we really look at Jesus without a skepticism, you can see that He really had a goodness about Him, that He brought people into His life that people here on earth would ignore, hate, not help. He's the epitome of what we should be. So even if you don't believe in heaven, wouldn't you want to be like someone like that? Someone says life came from a big bang. I say when God created earth, perhaps there was a bang from His mighty hand. Someone says earth created itself through evolution. I say God designed the earth to reproduce after its own kind. And that although changes within a species happens, like maybe our eyes get a little bigger or our muscles get stronger faster, one species cannot turn into another. Everything leads back to God for me, even science, because science is a study that explains many things, and those many things point to an intelligent creator. Try to just create something right now. Hold out your hands and say, let's create a rose. We can't produce anything from nothing but our own power. We don't have power unless we access God's. God's the only one who can do that. Nobody I know can do that. And here's what I know about life. Genesis 1:1 says, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness covered the surface of the watery depths, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. Then God said, let there be light, and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and He called the darkness night. Evening came, and then morning, the first day. That's just day 1. Read through Genesis 1 for more. But when I try to imagine the earth formless and empty, like there was maybe a stencil of earth, but it was just black and empty and quiet, like there wasn't even white noise. It was just nothing. But God was there the whole time? What was God doing before He created us? Was He just thinking, man, I just really want to do something big, but what? I mean, God was always there. I can't imagine anything before time. I mean, did God create time itself? It's something I can never understand. Maybe when I get to heaven, I'll know. I'll be able to see what it looked like for Him, but it's just, that's one of those illogical things I said I'd be talking about. It's something we can't logically explain or understand, but that's part of why I follow God, because He is not understandable. He's someone that you only understand in a tiny way when you're walking with Him, and that's amazing on its own. And then there's this great unknown about Him that you'll never understand until you get to be with Him, and He's worth following. I want to follow someone who far surpasses my ability, because then I know His ability is limitless and He can hand all that over to me if I ask for it, if I'm in need of something. Also, you won't go to heaven just for being good. Who decides what is good? We all fall short of the glory of God. Those aren't my words. That is spoken from God through Paul in Romans 3:23. The only option apart from Christ is to go to hell, where we all would be if Christ didn't die for us. Most people deny God's existence because if they lean into their convictions that there might be a creator, that they actually are meant for more than an earthly life, that means they have to sacrifice more. They have to love even when not loved by the world. They have to forfeit their fleshly instincts, and they have to think about how their thoughts and actions affect eternity. Now, that's a lot to swallow, and it's a hard truth, but I think it's probably the biggest truth behind people who decide there is no God or they acknowledge there's a God but don't want to actually follow him. So I'm not saying anything other than what I just said. So think on that and take it seriously. But I have to say something about that part. Fleshly instincts, it's kind of about, it's not just about moderation, it's about obeying his commands. And there are certain commands that people want to say aren't in the Bible or twist things around, but there are things in the Bible. So if you haven't read it, I would read it. I would look up things that have to do with our fleshly desires, because there's a difference between enjoying like sex with your spouse like God created, which is absolutely beautiful and so intentional, as opposed to having sex with a lot of people and before marriage, or with someone else while you're married to someone else. Like, there's so much messy sexual sin that hurts deeper than probably any sin. So fleshly instincts is a very serious issue, but it does not mean you're supposed to never be touched by your spouse and you're supposed to hate sex. It's supposed to be terrible. That is not what I'm saying. So that's another one that would turn into another video on its own, and I'm already at, I think, 15 minutes, so I'm trying to keep this short. I'm here to say that when we practice self-control, it'll lead to being content in all circumstances, like in Philippians 4, also from Paul, who was in jail for his ministry for God, as he wrote that. This way, we aren't just more like Jesus, but we are able to endure through hardships with joy and love people even when they aren't lovable. My church says there's more to life than me, and we try to make that a part of every word we say, every thought we saturate ourselves with, and every step we take for the kingdom of God. Know that no matter your shortcomings, you can have his grace. Know that you were made with a purpose. You matter. You don't have to smile always and be a good little girl and boy to be with God. You are worth being loved even when you fail to love back. You can be healed, can be comforted, can be saved by God and by people who truly follow God. That's what you mean to me, even as a stranger. That's what following God does. It convinces you of something so strange to the world that it either is crazy enough to work or will not work at all and will at least have been the best ride on earth of your life, and you'll be remembered as loving so relentlessly that people will want this Jesus you so proclaimed through your life. And they will know that following God does work. It works to bring you hope on earth, and it lands you in the heavenly realms with salvation as your clothing. Now, I know I talked about a lot of stuff, and I've said probably 25,000 times to message me or comment if you have something you want to say that has to do with something I addressed, and you're welcome to do that. But first, I would maybe watch my video again if you need. Look through the blogs I posted below, because it might answer some questions you have. I go into bigger detail. And I want to say one thing. I disabled the comments for the video just because I don't feel comfortable having any old person just start some argument or say cruel things. Most times God isn't even mentioned. That tends to happen. And I brought up a lot of big things that could be really disagreeable. And I don't trust millions of YouTube users who stumble on this video to say things without really thinking about what I said carefully. I just think it's wisest for this video. But you can still comment on Facebook though if you're connected with me, and you're welcome to discuss something I addressed in a message to me. I'll either link to a message for YouTube if I can do that, and if not, I'll show you how to message me through YouTube if you aren't connected with me any other way. So I hope you enjoyed watching this, and look at the description for some more details, and have a happy new year. It's week 1 of 2017, and I look forward to next time.